Welcome back to the Bellingham City Council's committee meetings. The next committee is Lake, Whatcom, and Natural Resources, chaired by Councilmember Dan Hamill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining me today on the committee are Council Members Knutson and Barker, substituting for Councilmember Borneman. We have one item before us. This is the interlocal agreement between the City of Bellingham and Whatcom County for the Homeowner Incentive Program. This agreement with Whatcom County establishes the general structure, roles, and responsibilities for the revised Homeowner Incentive Program, or HIP as it's known. And here today are Ted Carlson.
Thank you. Ted Carlson, Public Works, along with Renee LaCroix, Public Works. As Council is aware, we have completed the first phase of the Homeowner Incentive Program, which was funded through a grant from Department of Ecology. And as we look forward to the next phase, moving beyond the original program, focusing on what we call the Tier 1 properties, which are larger properties and properties that are along the shorelines, identifying those as the priority, and moving out into the area of unincorporated Whatcom County. The interlocal before the council today really sets the framework for how we move forward with the program, including our relationship with Whatcom County, how the actual work will be completed, and how the funding between the two jurisdictions will be dealt with. And so with that kind of very brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Renee, go through the program a little bit more, and certainly answer any questions that the council may have about how we're moving forward with the HIP program.
Thank you. Renee LaCroix, Public Works. So as Ted was saying, we've moved away from the grant-funded program. The HIP 2.0, as we're calling it, it will be funded primarily through city and county funds. We did a lot of research and surveys and focus groups at the end of HIP 1.0, and we got a lot of great feedback on ways to improve HIP 2.0. And so what you see in the interlocal is what city and county staff have crafted in response to a lot of that feedback to structure a program that we feel like will be most effective moving forward. So during 2016, we met regularly with the county staff and came up with a very collaborative approach. As Ted mentioned, the focus area is Basin 2. And so it's really important for the county to take a lead since that's outside of city jurisdiction. So HIP 2.0 is going to focus mostly on Basin 2. It will be, we have a tiered assistance level. So if you have a large lawn area or a property adjacent to a shoreline or a creek, you'll be in Tier 1, or shoreline, creek, large lawn. And then anybody else will be in what we're calling Tier 2. Since the bulk of the geographic area is in the county is going to take the lead with HIP 2.0, and they'll be contracting with the Whatcom Conservation District, and that's again based on feedback we got after HIP 1.0 that people would rather not work directly with a jurisdictional entity in this type of project. And so of the groups that were specifically mentioned, Whatcom Conservation District was number one. So we reached out to them. They were very interested in this. We've been meeting with them regularly, and they've gone through the process of hiring an additional staff person to run this program specifically. So the interlocal that's before you today is the culmination of last year's staff meetings and bringing in the Conservation District and trying to be responsive to the feedback that we got. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Committee members. Councilmember Barker.
Yeah, so I'll certainly be supporting this. I was glad to see that it looks like we're continuing on page 46, number 7, easement and maintenance agreement with all people that participate in this program. And I think that's important for people to understand that might just be coming new into this conversation, that whenever we do use funds to help property owners, we are then requiring that we have access to those properties. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move approval.
I have a question. I think this agreement does a great job in terms of articulating an understanding of how the program guidelines and requirements work in the program's geographic area, as you just mentioned too, along with the geotechnical research and technical assistance. What I'm wondering is what measurable effects on TMDL reductions can we be expecting as a result of this?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a pat answer for you. I think I'll get back to you with more specifics on that.
Mayor.
Well, I couldn't necessarily tell you the figures or the data about it, but the Conservation District has a long history of working with non-point source pollution out in the county, keeping dairy waste and other contaminants out of the Nooksack River. And with the kind of techniques that they worked with the farmers, they reduced the fecal coliform in the Nooksack River within 1 year to the standards. So I think that this is TMDL for Lake Whatcom, but we had TMDL for the county too. And I'm very confident that their technical assistance in how to keep contaminants out of the lake will be very successful. But I also think that I'm glad we're prioritizing. I think that Renee and Ted Shop did a great job of listening to some of my concerns about how we did it before and how we could do it now. And certainly this is, I believe, the best way to build on more and more people keeping contaminants on their own properties instead of letting them run down into the lake.
This is I'm sorry, Councilmember Barker.
No, I have to agree, and I do appreciate having come into this just last year and trying to catch up on all the Lake Whatcom, the approach that's been taken to use the carrot versus the stick, and then to continue that process until we get to a place where we might have to use a stick. But I feel like you've really been circling it to ensure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make it as easy as possible for people to participate. And then I imagine we'll finally get to a place where we might have to use a stick a little bit more. So thank you for the approach. I appreciate it.
Council members, any questions, comments?
Can I just say one more
Sorry,
thing?
Mayor.
I think what April just mentioned is really important, because the concept with the Nooksack was compliance model rather than just enforcement model, and so it included technical assistance education, or education, technical assistance, incentives, and enforcement. So even though enforcement is potentially down the road, it's still part of a compliance model. So in the end, you try to get at the beginning, you try to get as much voluntary compliance as possible. And that's where all these techniques that they've developed to be part of this plan fit in so well.
Councilmember Vargas, then Lilliquist.
I just want to say that I'm going to be supporting it, serving on that committee for a couple of years and watching that process. I think this is a great direction for us to go in, because this does really encompass the whole county, and the more collaboratively that we do this, the bigger impact it's going to be.
Councilmember Lilliquist.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of repeat Councilmember Hamill's request for trying to get an estimate on not just the amount of phosphorus removed, but also kind of the cost. We've done some cost-benefit studies before, and in general, they find that these kind of low-tech on-site projects, rain gardens, infiltration trenches on a site-by-site basis are relatively inexpensive, and the public subsidy is therefore relatively small for phosphorus removed. But I'm going sort of based on kind of like pro formas from earlier studies. I don't expect us to actually measure the phosphorus, but it seems like it would be good to have a kind of a, dollars per pound estimate, which is what we've used in the other ones. Our big municipal projects are hundreds of thousands of dollars per pound removed. They can be very expensive if you have to do an end-of-pipe type solution as opposed to an upstream solution. So on down the line, it might be nice to have some kind of estimate on that.
Yeah, and I have numbers in my head, but I'm not comfortable quite throwing them out, so I'd want to double check them, and I can send you that in email form.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Here's a motion in front of us for approval. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, I'll move this forward this evening.